Hey guys, it's Courtney and I'm here with a video for Trinity stamps. Today I'm going to be using the Let Love Grow stamp set, which is actually one of the older stamp sets, but one of my favorites. As you can see, it's very well loved. I am going to be using Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink to go ahead and stamp this onto a piece of kind of like a turquoise cardstock. I believe this is Audrey Blue cardstock by Simon Says Stamp, but I can't be sure because it's just part of my stash. This is cut just a little bit smaller than an A2 size card. It is 5 1/4 by 4. I'm also going to be using a blending buddy brush here just to add a little bit of that peacock feathers around the edges of the card panel. It's not going to be too noticeable because it kind of is a tone on tone look, but it just adds a little bit something extra to the edges. So for the actual image itself, I'm going to be using my polychromos to do my coloring. And thank you to one of my subscribers. Thank you to Lauren, who actually sent me 3 white colored pencils. So hopefully this will last a while and I don't have to use that little 2-inch long white pencil that I had. So for this first succulent here, I'm going to be doing some kind of a tone on tone. It's going to match closely to the card stock itself. I went ahead and used my white pencil with a very, very light hand to fill in one petal. Then I am starting with that darkest bluish greenish color for my darkest areas. So my darkest areas are basically going to be where one petal is behind another. And then I'm going to blend that out each time. Now I'm using a pretty light hand. You can see that I'm kind of holding the pencils up a little bit. I'm not holding it too close to the tip of the pencil. And this way you won't have as much, I don't want to say you don't have as much control, but you tend not to press as hard the further up you hold the pencil. So I'm kind of holding this up a little bit. And then once I get to that lightest color, I'm going to fill in the very tip of the petal with that white pencil. And this time I'm going in with a pretty heavy hand and getting all of those blues to blend nicely together and kind of blend off to white. Now, I'm not going to show you all of the coloring here. I'm just going to show you a few of the petals and then kind of the different color combinations that I used for the rest of the card. But my coloring is pretty much going to be the same as far as the shadows go and filling in the tips with the white pencil. Now, for this next petal here, it's got kind of a curved line on the top, and this would kind of indicate some texture or where it would kind of be bent over on itself. So I'm going to use that line as a guide to add a little bit more shading there so that it kind of gives or keeps that shape of the petal. And I just added a little bit of that darkest color, and then I'm going to blend it out a little bit each time as I go down, same as I did for the rest of the petal. And then again, finishing off with that white pencil. Now, some of these little petals there's not really much showing because they're pretty much tucked behind everything. There's not going to be much of a highlight on these, but making sure that your pencils are very, very, very sharp when you're doing your coloring will allow you to maintain at least a little bit of that highlight color or a little bit of that white area, and so that they kind of all mesh together. So I went ahead and continued coloring this entire succulent with this same color combination, pretty much sticking to the same thing with the exception of the middle. These are a little bit darker just because they are the middle of the succulent. But again, I did make sure that I used a very sharp pencil and left just a tiny bit of that area for the white. So next we're going to move on to the next color combination, and I'm going to be using some pinks here, and I'm going to do my coloring pretty similar. I'm starting off with that white pencil and then going in with that darkest pink, and you'll see that I'm constantly sharpening my pencils, especially for these other succulents where the petals are a little bit smaller than that main succulent that we started with. But this time I'm only using 3 different pinks, and again, keeping that white area for the tip of each one of the petals. But I didn't feel the need to bring in 4 colors for these because they are so tiny. But again, I am doing my shading the same exact way. Now, also what you want to keep in mind is when you're using the white pencil, you don't want to add your white pencil to the tip and work your way down to the color. You want to actually start on the color and bring that color out, because the white is actually going to be used kind of as a blender pen or a blender pencil, I guess you could say, because it's going to get these colors to blend even more, and you want to kind of bring that out towards the tip. You don't want to start on the tip and then work your way down, or else you're just going to have a big blob of white and it's not going to actually blend with the color that you have already added. So you can see that I'm just kind of working my way around this succulent. Now I wanted to have more of this pink. I love this pink combination, and I think it's really bright and vibrant and goes perfectly with this image. So I wanted to use this color combination in other areas of this image as well. So for this one, I don't even know if it would be a succulent, but normally what I'm used to seeing anyway, from going to the desert and Arizona and things like that, some of the succulents and cacti have buds, have flowers on them. So I wanted to color this one pink as well to kind of look as if it is kind of a flower that's coming off of it. And I'm going to go in and add some shading where it's kind of bunched together in the center. And I'm just going to extend that out to each side each time, again, finishing off with that white pencil. Now for these little, I don't even know if these would be, they kind of look like berries to me, but I know they're probably not. But I'm going to color these in with the same color combination. Now the larger ones, I am using all of the pinks along with the white pencil, but for the smaller ones, I'm just going to take one of the mid-tone pinks and fill those in solid. I would recommend using a mid-tone if you're just going to use one color, so that it kind of matches everything else. You don't want to use the darkest or the lightest. It just tends to go together a little bit better if you use a mid-tone. So once the pinks were done, I'm going to move on to the next color combination, and this is kind of a purpley color here. And again, going to color this the same exact way. This one is super easy to color because there's no folds or any texture within the petals. It's just pretty much straight. But I am going to use 3 different purples here along with that white pencil, and just going to add a little bit of shading towards the base of each one of the petals, and also add a shadow where one is either touching or laying behind another. And again, I just blend that out each time. I'm also trying to be careful not to bring my darkest color all the way to the edge of any of the petals, because it's going to almost give you a no-line look once everything is colored. You don't want 2 of the darkest areas next to one another, or else you're going to kind of lose the shape of the succulent. One petal is just going to kind of mush into the other, and you won't be able to differentiate. So just try to avoid using this darkest color right directly next to one another. So once my purples are all done, I'm going to bring in the green combination, and this is kind of a yellowish green combination. And I'm going to start off with this one succulent or cacti that's underneath this little bud here. And I'm going to color this similar to the way I did with the flower. But this time I'm also going to add a shadow on the bottom, because this one is kind of tucked behind that large succulent, the one that we started with. But I'm also going to add a little bit of shading where it's bunched together in the middle. I'm also going to add a little bit of a shadow where it's kind of behind that little gem there. And again, I'm using 3 different greens here, and as well as the white. Now, once I had gone in with the white, I realized that it just wasn't blending well together. I just don't think I added enough of the greens. I had too much white space, let me put it to you that way. So because I didn't go in with too heavy of a hand, I was able to go back with that lightest green and add a little bit more with a pretty light hand and kind of get that white to blend with that lightest green. And I was much happier with the results. So as long as you're not using too heavy of a hand until you're happy with it, you can go back in and add a little bit of more color. So I use the same color combination, same green combination for this final succulent down on the bottom, but I skipped that in the video just because I colored it pretty much the same way. And next we're going to move on to these gems, and I'm going to bring in some yellows here. I'm going to go right in with my darkest here, and I'm just going to pick a side to put my shading. It doesn't matter what side you choose, but in my case, I chose the left-hand side, and I'm pretty much just outlining the lines where each one of these little sections neat. And then I'm going to blend that out with the mid-tone, and I'm just going to go straight lines again, just bringing that out a little bit further. Same thing with the lightest yellow, and then again finishing off with that white pencil, starting off on the yellow section, bringing that out to the white section, making sure that I don't start in the, I can't even say it's white because it's colored cardstock, but you guys get what I mean. So I colored all of the gems the same exact way with the same color combination. Once all of my coloring was done, we are going to go ahead and add the sentiment. I'm going to take 2 of the sentiments from this same stamp set and kind of arrange those onto my card panel the way I wanted them. And once I was happy with them, I popped those onto an acrylic block. I did have to kind of move these around a little bit just to make sure that they were completely straight. I did kind of curve the bloom word a little bit. That's the great thing about photopolymer stamps, is you can kind of curve your sentiments a bit. Treated my cardstock here with my anti-static tool and went ahead and stamped my sentiment with Versamark ink. Sprinkled on some white embossing powder and heat set that. Before heat setting it, I did make sure that my heat gun was heated up for at least about 30 seconds or so before bringing that to the paper. It did still warp, but it does minimize your warping. Now, my embossing wasn't perfect, so I went in with my white gel pen just to fix up some of the areas that weren't as white and vibrant, and I wanted to add a few dots of my white gel pen around my image, and I was scribbling off on my finger to kind of get the ink moving and realized that my white gel pen is just dead. I don't have any ink. So I had to bring out my Jelly Roll pen, which is not quite as opaque. I don't like it as well as the other, but it will do. Added a few dots around my image there and used some fun foam to pop this up onto a white A2 size note card. And that is it. That is the card for today. As always, I will leave the supplies in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today and have a great day. Bye.